How you doing?
Hey, can you please sign in? That's why they asked me, because I want to.
Once you switched on
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I don't want to take care of that. I have to get up, come over here. Thank you very much. What?
Hi, did you find it?
Morning.
All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'm Councilman Baird. I've volunteered to start the meeting in Mayor's absence today. This is a regularly scheduled council meeting for Roosevelt City, and I believe the agenda has been posted on the state website as per state law. And so to start the meeting, we do want to welcome everybody who's here today and hope that y'all feel welcome and listened to by the end of the meeting. We love having people here to give us feedback. So hopefully there's some of that today. And then, so we'll get started by having an opening prayer. Oh, actually, no, it looks like we got to do roll call first. Okay, so the mayor is not here and Councilman Busenbark is not here. Okay, and we'll move on to an opening prayer. Councilman Allen is going to do that, and then after I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord and Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we had to meet here this evening and be able to plan and discuss and talk about the needs of the city which we live in. We ask that we can have open minds and hearts to make the best decisions that will affect the area that we live in, and we can best use the taxpayer dollars. We are grateful for the area that we live in. We're thankful for the freedoms that we have and those who sacrifice so much to give us those freedoms. We ask that we can be mindful of the important decisions that we need to make, and we say things in the name of Jesus Christ.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we'll start the meeting by electing a mayor pro tem to act for this meeting.
I move that we make David Councilman Baird the mayor.
And I'll make an alternative motion to make Cody Allen.
I'll second on Councilman Baird.
Great, I thought I could get away with not doing it, but. Okay, so I guess first item of business. Oh yeah, so we call a vote, sorry. All in favor? Do I have to? The vote is, do I have to give a vote or do I?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to vote because I don't really want to be the mayor today. Okay. I guess passes and I get to act as mayor today, so. This is way out of my comfort zone, everybody, so, okay. So I guess first item of business is to review the minutes for the April 4th meeting. Is there any changes that are requested? Okay, how about the April 18th meeting? Do we have to make separate motions for those, or can we motion to approve both? Okay. We'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the minutes for both meetings.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. We have a comment period. We invite any who are here with the public today to come up to the microphone and have up to 3 minutes to address the council on any matters involving the city of Roosevelt. We just ask that you say your name and tell us where you live. There is an agenda item for the chickens. So if you want to wait till then, that's fine. We'll allow you to do that.
I'm here for the chickens. No, I'm here, just Matt Luce. I live in Meadow area, and I like attending the Arts, Parks, and Rec meetings until they're not held here because the room is locked. It seems ridiculous that you have an agenda, or you have an agenda, you have it on your calendar, all these people show up, and then nobody can get into the room, so the meeting is then canceled. You're wasting a lot of people's time. This has happened twice, I believe, over the last 11-month period. It just seems unacceptable that somebody that is going to be in that meeting can't have access to this room.
Okay. Thank you.
My other comment is I dealt with the police department recently for a few things, and one of them is for ordinances that apparently cannot be enforced right now. I'm curious if you have a comment on that. I'm hearing it's a staffing issue, but it's also an issue with the way they are submitted. They went from paper to electronic, and apparently they're not ready for that electronic system, so that they're not enforcing any of the ordinances. At least that's
Okay. What was that regarding? So you're basically saying that our ordinances aren't being enforced because they're not available for the
that's what I
see
mean.
right now. Okay.
Correct.
We are working on that.
Do you have a timeline on when that's going to be?
We staff, do we have a timeline on that?
I can get you an update on that and figure out what that timeline. It has to do with having the same ordinance numbers as Vernal City. When we transfer the software over, it's registering that it's a Vernal City ordinance violation instead of Vernal.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. If you'd like to meet with our staff, city manager at some point, you can schedule time to get more information, maybe
Okay.
work on that with him.
I guess that's comment or question really is the sidewalk on Palmer's, in front of Palmer's. Is that going to be addressed? Or I should say, the lack of sidewalk?
Okay.
Correct. Is that on anybody's radar? Is that
It's not something that I'm aware of. What's that?
the owner of the property's responsibility or what? I know that I run my toddlers up that sidewalk and there is no sidewalk.
Okay.
It can be looked at and addressed. Let me look it over, see exactly what's going on there and what we got situation wise. And so much money a year that the Public Works Department is awarded that we replace sidewalk or do. Let me look at that situation.
Okay, we'll look into it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from the council regarding anything there? Okay. Our next, is there any others who'd like to comment? All right, we'll move forward. Do we have any committee appointments tonight? Okay. Do we have any recognitions? We have the photo contest. We'll turn the time over to our city manager, John.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate it. So recently, the city did a photo contest where we solicited photos from residents in the community who wanted to highlight some of their talent, their abilities, and we can also showcase throughout our community. We had over 60 submittals. So a great turnout from local photographers that we can then publicize what a great community we live in. So tonight, we'd like to present the top 3 individuals. And if you're here, if you'll please come up. We're going to start with third place. In third place, we had, and I apologize if I say your name incorrectly, Kyle Niebergall. So Kyle Niebergall had third place. And here is this picture. This you, Kyle?
Yeah.
Come on up, Kyle. And Kyle did get 6 swim passes there. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. In second place, we had Dorinda Acey. We'll still show her picture as well. It's up there as well. No, Miranda? Well, if you see her, congratulate her. She gets a 3-month membership to the Aquatic Center. Congratulations. And in first place, this one is incredible. Fly fisherman in Duchesne County. This goes to Taylor Raths. Is that correct? 3-month family membership to the Aquatic Center.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We just want to thank everybody that participated. This was incredible, and we have some, definitely incredible talent here in the community. So thank you all for participating.
Yeah, good job, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Well, next on the agenda is Tara Kalunga, discussion appointment. I believe this is regarding the chickens. Go ahead and take a stand here and share with us your thoughts.
So long as what I put in my mind to say, so I'm a little nervous
You're okay.
tonight. My name is Tara Kalunga. I live at 367 South 300 East. My family and I moved here from Lehigh, Utah, March 27, 2021. We wanted to live in a small, quiet town where we could enjoy what comes with it. We didn't need Starbucks or a dozen different fast food places. We didn't want to live in a place where you stretch your hand out of your side window and you're touching your neighbor's house. We wanted room where we could be outside in our own yard, enjoy the peace and quiet, and just be happy. To us, that's the American dream. Working an honest job, making a humble living, and helping where we can, when we can. To live in a place where our neighbors are friends, almost family even. And I must say, here in Roosevelt, we have found that. When we moved here, we noticed how large our property was. This isn't trying to boast. We only have about 0.18 of an acre. But where we came from and for what we wanted, that was more than enough. We want a space where we could enjoy being outside in our own yard, have a garden and some chickens, maybe not entirely be self-sufficient, but it was enough. In April 2021, I called the city to ask about chickens. For the life of me, I don't remember the person's name, nor did I get it in writing. I didn't think it would blow up into this mess or cause any sort of issue. I called to inquire how many chickens we were allowed to have, and I was told 30. So we built and planned out our yard accordingly. In August of 2021, we got 9 chickens. A few months later, a family friend had to move and gave us their 30 chickens. We gave away 18 and kept the rest. To fill out our flock to 30, we hatched a couple of eggs of our own, one of these being Peanut the rooster. My partner hatched and raised Peanut and has grown attached to him, enough so that he's become an emotional support animal, and they no longer need some medication because of him. We recently got him registered as one even. He comes in at night and goes out in the morning between 7 and 8 a.m. He wanders the yard while the rest of our chickens are penned up. Up until last week, we had other roosters as well. You see, we've tried being responsible with our animals. Yes, we have 30 chickens, but we aren't all together. We have them separated in case anything happens to one, we don't lose them all. We keep the coops clean as well, so there is rarely a smell. We feed them and don't let them get out at all. The only problem we ever had with our chickens was when we hatched about 20 chicks for our neighbor's friend. These chicks were penned up separately in the center of our yard to keep them from getting attacked from other older chickens. A few days before the neighbor's friend was to pick them up, their dog got out and attacked them all. We didn't report them as we understood the dog was doing just what their instinct was telling them to. But if you don't believe me, I can dig up the grave of them all and show you. If you notice, all our other chickens who were in their permanent homes weren't attacked. They were safe behind fences and locked doors. My animals are all well taken care of and safe. I'm not sure why I shouldn't be allowed to keep them. Fast forward to April 2023 when it's called into question whether we can or not. We get a complaint that we have roosters and female chickens and have to get rid of all of them. Well, Peanut is an emotional support animal. We can't necessarily get rid of him. And we were told we could have up to 30. A close friend and neighbor, Lorna, asks around and gets the attention of David Baird. He let us know through her who looked into it. He's visited our house, we've given our family eggs, and he now has chickens of his own, so it was a concern for him as well. He advised we should get rid of the roosters in the meantime as a show of good faith, which we've done, that as well, gotten rid of most of our chickens. I propose we fix that ordinance or be rezoned. We are zoned in with condos and apartments while we live in a single-family home with a decent-sized yard. We shouldn't be lumped into the same category when our circumstances are different. While looking into this, I learned there is no sound ordinance. Most complaints about a rooster comes from the noise, but if there is no sound ordinance, it can't really be enforced or be a reason to get rid of them. I could easily go out with a blowhorn at 2 in the morning and make as much noise as I wanted because there is an ordinance. This isn't even to mention the countless times people are blaring their music or revving their engines so loud it can wake you from the smoke sound of slumbers. We have people speeding down our road. I live on a corner, and more than once I've seen people take the corner so tightly, if there were a sidewalk, they would be right on it. The cars speed so fast they rarely have time to react if a dog hops into the road. God forbid a child. It's an accident waiting to happen. When we've complained, we're told nothing can be done. There are dogs, stray or not, I don't even know at this point, that wander the neighborhood at all hours of the day and night. When we've called about those, nothing is done. But where I have chickens and I'm taking care of them, minding my own business, I'm getting reported. Quite honestly, it feels like I'm being singled out or targeted. There are bigger issues and frankly more dangerous issues than what I have in my backyard. Not getting out or causing a ruckus, especially now that I have a privacy fence for my backyard, and instead of just having a 3-foot tall fence to keep my dogs penned in. It was also stated I can't make money off the chickens or eggs. I can full-heartedly confirm it, or confirm I don't. It costs me about $140 every 2 or 3 weeks to feed them when I have all of the chickens. I do accept donations, but they don't make enough to even cover the cost of the food. Of the donations I received in the last year for my eggs, it was a total of $120. That's about $10 a month, nowhere near close to any sort of profit. This is a labor of love. I mentioned earlier I want to help how I can. We've given several eggs to those who needed it. Anybody who comes to our home is welcome to eggs, and if we can spare anything else to that as well. We fell in love with the city of Roosevelt and love the community. My neighbors have become like family, and though I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I wouldn't change a thing. To me, I'm living the American dream. I have a house with a loving family and have animals I trade my life for. Please, I'm asking you to allow me to keep these chickens. They aren't harming anyone, and I probably take care of them better than I take care of myself. I understand if roosters are a no, save for Peanut, since he is an emotional support animal and doesn't stay out at night. But to make us lose them all, quite frankly, it doesn't make much sense to me, aside from upholding a rule, law, ordinance, or whatever you want to call it. Probably should be revised. It isn't just me that has chickens, let alone roosters either. Going for a drive in our zone, I've counted no less than 2 dozen homes with chickens, and even half that with roosters. I ask you to make it make sense. These fine people are probably taking care of their animals just as well as we are. It's not fair we need to get rid of them when we've been taking care of them, and more importantly, keeping them to ourselves for so long. Let's continue to live our American dream. What do we need to do to have this continue? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Is there any other comments regarding this issue that any people that would like to share?
I'm Heather Bowen Daniels. I live across the street from Kara at 356 South 300 East. I as well have chickens. I have 8. I would like to keep my chickens as well. They provide us eggs, so we're self-sufficient. And with the cost of eggs going as high as they did in the winter time, like she said, there are other people, and we are being singled out. There's 3 of us. I haven't been served yet, but I was told over the phone that I was going to be served through the mail. But there's 3 of us that have been served, and there's dozens in our zone that have chickens, and you can hear the roosters down the road crowing. But as far as roosters go, I am a no on roosters. I have to say that. But the one is her emotional support rooster. I understand that. And as long as there's no smell, I don't mind them having their 30 chickens. But 30 chickens is excessive. I have to admit that is a lot, but they don't bother us. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Is I just don't want to be singled out. I feel like if you're going to single 3 of us out, you need to go around to every residence and see if they have chickens, and then serve them also. That's in our zone and the RM13 also. Chickens.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I live in the middle of all these chickens. And I don't have any problem with it. I don't have any problem with anybody down in our zone even having the chickens or even roosters.
Will you just state your name for
Lauren
the
Clay.
record? Thank you.
But I feel like it needs to be rezoned because this part of town, is a low income part. And not everybody can afford food and the price of eggs. It's expensive. I mean, I couldn't afford it. If it wasn't for these guys, I wouldn't have been able to have eggs over the winter or even now. But I think it really does need to be rezoned. Or, you know, because there are places in the zoning area that it's just like one block is rezoned for chickens or, you know, fowl animals. But the rest of it's not. And if they can have a block that's done that way, why can't we have like a 4, you know, block area where there are no apartments or condos in there? And I think they should be able to keep chickens.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this issue? All right. I've done a little looking into this myself. You know, as a councilman, I do my best to hear what people, especially down where I live, say, and I, you know, I have the ability to, you know, and I guess all of us do have the ability to change the laws. And I think we're actually working on that right now. I've talked with the city attorney, but of course I'm just one person. I suspect the rest of the council is listening to and would be open to, you know, looking into this and trying to make it work for each of you. Is there any thoughts by the council?
I'm just curious, in the area you're living, what is the zoning?
RM18.
So what is that? How many?
That's 18 units per acre, high density, our most high density housing in Roosevelt, apartments. As far as area for yards, it would be our lowest in the city.
Is that a lot for chicken?
No, no animals, it's not permitted, household pets only at this point.
Your definition of household pet is a little confusing because it does say that fowl is a household pet. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll look into this. I mean, I personally, I've looked into the law, read the zoning ordinance. I'm not in favor of how it's written. So we'll look into this issue. Is there any other thoughts from the council? Yeah, one thing, having lived down there, these lots are small, but like the smallest lot I could find was 0.12 acres, which is just under 6,000 square feet. And there is an R16 that allows lots up to 6,000 square feet. And, you know, there is some adjoining areas. I don't know if we can try to work in some R16 zoning or if we just want to change the urban livestock rules for our city. But I think, you know, I'm in favor. I'm already working, like I said, with Grant, and I'm hoping that we can come to a place where we allow chickens, just because there's really not too much difference between where we live down there and the R16 zoning elsewhere in the city. There's really very little difference. And
Okay, so on this paper that she was served, that Tara and Molly were served, they had a month to get rid of everything. Do they still have to get rid of it, or can we wait until all this is, I mean, they did get rid of their roosters, except for support rooster.
right, which is
And he
understandable.
does go in at night, and he does come out about 8 o'clock every morning.
Grant, is there, so that was Lorna Clegg, I don't know if everyone's heard, but she asked if they were still required to follow the order that was given to them to get rid of the chickens within 30 days.
Yeah, and it was like.
Unless there's an ordinance that's changed, that's
Okay.
Okay, so does that mean everybody down in that area has to get rid of their chickens, or just?
everybody should.
Everybody ought to, yeah, or else they could risk getting
Even
served.
when we were.
In order for us to enforce it, we have to have reasonable suspicion, do an investigation, find out what's there. We can't just go search everything. So anything that's reported to us would get a similar notice and it would be expected.
The reason this came to a head was because multiple neighbors, and I'll keep names out of it if you'd like, complained about the chickens. And some here, some not, but we were compelled to enforce the ordinance due to the complaints that we received.
So, Grant, how soon can we get going on? Already in process. So I would just, I mean, yeah, I'll stay out of it for the most part, but you know you know what the potential risks are in hanging on to them. And there's really nothing we can do about that because it's the way that the law is written at this time. So we will do what we can. And honestly, I'd be happy to, if you can set up a place for chickens on my property, I'd be happy to take them until we get the law passed. I live in rural residential zoning where it is allowed to have them. You could hang on to your rooster, I would suspect, because it is a pet. And I
I
mean,
have a comment on that. Go ahead, Casey. The way that the ordinance is written, that no one is supposed to have a rooster. And I'm not gonna say anything good or bad or indifferent about your rooster. But just because it's a emotional support animal, the only place that that really matters is if you have a landlord, then they have to let you have emotional support pets. That doesn't really apply in this situation because it's just landlords have to allow people to have those, but that's the only place that that matters. Maybe there's something that can be done about that, but if we allow any type of rooster, then we'd have to have everybody have a rooster. So hopefully we can do something about that. But as I looked into this, the classification of emotional support animal, the only protection that you have by that is your landlord can't force you to get rid of a dog or a cat, or, you know, if they have a no pet policy, they have to allow emotional support animals. But where this is, roosters are not allowed in the city, it's not helping you in this situation is what I'm saying.
and what we're telling you right now is not necessary. Like, you could still do your own legal review and get an attorney and look into that. It's really, we're just kind of telling you our understanding of how we see it. But as far as what Grant said, he is our city attorney, and he's saying that there's nothing we can do at this point, and so we're going to have to stand by that for the time being. And we can, you know, we can talk afterwards about arrangements. I'm sure there's people, including myself, that would be happy to help you out. So, is there any other thoughts?
I think we should get moving on it quick because, I mean, like it's been stated quite a few times, a lot of people are getting chickens now. And I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing.
And the only difference between their zoning and R16 is that there are multi-housing units in there and there are modular homes. I mean, well, there's several other differences, but those are the two distinguishing differences, is that we have modular homes occupying properties that are just as big as the R16 zoning. And so
Wouldn't that be up to the landlords to let them have or have not? I'm not sure.
yeah, not everyone has a landlord. So if you own the property, then what I'm saying is a property that's 6,000 square feet, whether it has a modular home on it or stick-built, stick-framed home on it, is not any different in my eyes. And so you should be treated the same as the R16 zoning. And so that zoning allows up to 6 chickens right now. And so that's probably where it would end up, just so you know.
Okay, so another question. I don't understand. I'm as close to the apartments like as you guys' house. You know, a couple blocks away.
Right.
And you guys are totally zoned in a whole different zone.
We have an acre, and we're on, it's just a different landscape characteristic. It's zoned for, it's just, honestly, I didn't make the zoning rules, but when I bought my property, I had to look at
I
that.
was just
And
wondering.
yeah, so just, there could be 2 different zonings right next to each other, and they just have different rules. It's just all about the zoning law. So the question there, sorry, I should be stating these for the record. That was a question from Lorna saying that I lived super close, and how come my zoning allows for chickens? So
I
As I mentioned, we got rid of all the units for the roosters and got rid of most of our chickens. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get the rest of them going in time. Is there a way I can get an extension or some sort, or some sort of leeway in that? Because I was really hoping we might be able to come to an agreement today on it, or some sort, you know?
That's a good question. I mean,
Yeah.
so Tara, is that what
Yes.
you, is asking if she could potentially file for an extension?
Okay.
Okay. So, all right, thank you guys for coming, and we truly do want to help you out. And at least I'm sure that we all do here. Because you guys own that property, and as long as you're not being a problem to your neighbors, there should be no reason why you shouldn't be able to have chickens. So we'll do what we can, and we'll get moving on it right away. So
Just remember that our attorney let you know that this is being worked on right now. The ordinance is being looked at, and there have been suggestions and things to modify that so that as long as your lot is big enough, hopefully we can accommodate more people in the city to have.
Time frame we could expect an answer, or is this just gonna be an ongoing issue?
Through planning and zoning first, we pick a date, but not for this draft. So if they're meeting once a month, so we're probably looking at July. First Wednesday of July. So then it'll go to planning and zoning, and so then we have to have a public hearing if you guys decide to change it here. So realistically, we're gonna be late summer, early fall process we have to go through. If you guys decide to do a change.
okay, just for a simple modification to the code, we have to.
Because of all the steps we have to go through between planning and zoning and here.
All right, okay. So that's probably the best we could do time-wise, it sounds like, with all the steps we have to go through. But we will move it forward, we'll prioritize it as a priority. At least, do we have to make a motion to make a priority on this so that it does get done? Okay,
I don't know what that would even do.
okay, yeah, well, I just hate to speak for the whole council. If I say we'll prioritize it.
No, it's already prioritized.
We'll prioritize getting on the floor for getting something together to vote on as a council, so.
Is there something we as a community can do in the meantime, or to help push things along? I just don't want this to fall through the cracks. I want to show that I'm wanting to work and willing to work with others.
Come talk to me on occasion. These other councilmen, we're here to represent you. We don't work for the city staff, we work for you. And so we bring your thoughts, concerns, and we help organize city policy and laws in accordance with what our citizens would want, and try to represent everyone. There's always, some things that some citizens don't like, but we do our best. And so, of course, you're welcome to call me anytime, and you're welcome to reach out to any of these guys.
Planning and zoning meetings also.
Yeah, planning and zoning, they are also public.
And should it be July?
So that would be a good thing to do. Go to the
Well,
planning and
not
zoning.
really any call city staff. We're here to help. You're always welcome to call and ask for an update where things are at.
I don't want to be a nuisance, though. I didn't know it would be a nuisance. If you give me that leeway, I will be a nuisance. I don't want that to happen to me.
And if I may, Councilor, I just want to thank you guys for coming in. This is how progress happens. Laws are a lot of times drafted. Sometimes there's unintended consequences. Discussion, dialogue with our elected officials is how progress happens. This is exactly how it works. You calling and checking in, you've been very cordial, great to work with. We want to give you updates. Our council wants this to be a priority. We're going to work on this. Feel free to call. Drew's our planner. I'm the city manager. I'm Josh. Don't hesitate to call. We'll give you updates at any time. Absolutely, we're here to help.
Thanks, Josh. Okay.
Just
more
one question.
comment.
Question on that, it's the number of chickens that will be allowed when you change the zoning. Do you have an idea? You said 6
That
for
would match
your
the rest of
zoning,
the city.
she's saying 30.
She's
what should
probably
they
gonna have to
plan
raise
on?
the clock to 6. Yeah.
which I have reduced it down to about like 12, 14 now, so it has been reduced.
Okay,
I just haven't been able to rehome everybody because I don't want them to get butchered because they have been good laying hens. And I've grown attached to them, I'm not gonna lie about that.
yeah,
So
You do give away a lot of things.
we do. We currently, for anybody here, we currently have a fridge full of eggs. If you want some, I gave you my address when I gave my first speech. Come over and get free eggs. Stop buying them at Walmart.
Stay off, right? That's that. That's a weekend.
we heard that, we're good. Thank you.
I just want to say that I'm sorry that when you called for information, you were given the information that you could have. And I don't know why that happened. They just didn't look at what zone you were actually in, and then they could have told you and you wouldn't have been in this. So we have to make sure that we give out the right information too, so we don't cause a problem.
Yeah.
When they told me 6 to 8 chickens. That's why I have 8.
And
chickens.
it depends on how big usually it's,
But I
limited
wouldn't
to
have it in
6.
a lot.
and then as you get a bigger lot, per however many square feet, you can add additional chickens. And I don't know if it ever gets to 30, but
Can I qualify that statement?
yeah.
Just in our R1 zones, all of our R16 zones is 6 max.
Total, okay.
Okay,
So, and somebody ran up the block thinking, I got to her today, and she said, oh, yeah, we were told we should have 30. She just talked to somebody at the front.
okay.
I,
Okay, we'll try to correct that because that's definitely an issue. Don't know who's doing it and we're not gonna blame anyone, but we'll take responsibility.
I
for
just
that.
feel bad that it put you in a bad situation.
Thank you.
I think we'll get there. City staff's here listening, they'll pass the word on. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on now. We appreciate your time. So the next item of business, we have public hearings. The first one is for fiscal year 2023 budget reopen and adjustments to general budget for animal shelter building improvements. Who's going to present? Rhonda, would you?
We have the rows down the animal shelter, the air conditioning, heating unit. There's not bringing the budget for it. We got 2 bids, one was for 9,000 skips, the other was 12,006. We wanted to try the other bid, the more expensive bid. Skips been good, it's just a little shaky. Like if the more expensive bid, try your spend on it.
Okay. Any thoughts about it? Is that all?
Last year, we redid the AC unit, heating and air conditioning unit in where the animals are. This is actually in the office space. The staff down there. there's
Okay.
That's no heater.
They've been using heaters. It's getting hot outside in the office.
Okay.
Jump on the snooze again.
Thoughts from the council?
Apparently, just according to the information we were given, there was work done before, they didn't feel like it was held up very well. And also maybe the numbers changed a little bit after the bid was awarded. So, I don't know that we should have a problem going with a different contractor.
Yeah, I don't think it's considerable enough that we need to really talk on it too much. If we want to go that other way, I'm fine with it.
And have you looked at a detailed comparison, apples to apples?
What they showed us, it looks, I'm not an AC expert either. So
Yeah.
a lot of times I don't know.
Okay.
But from what it looked comparable, and it was comparable to what we needed. It's just the air conditioning HVAC unit on top of the building. It's just, it can't be fixed. It's
Right.
old enough that it needs replaced.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion, or wait, no, we need to go into public hearing for this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into public hearing. Any thoughts or comments regarding the issue? Feel free to take a few minutes. Oh, we need a motion to go into public hearing. Thank you.
I'll motion to go into public hearing. To discuss, adjustments for the animal shelter building.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilman Allen and second by Councilman Cloward. All in favor? Aye. Okay, now we're open for public comment. Anyone who has comments regarding this issue, feel free to take a minute, come up to the stand, state your name. All right. Seeing none, we'll move back into regular session. Is that right? Any thoughts from the council, or we'll entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Airco.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
And
Okay.
just for clarification, we are actually asking for an additional, the additional 12,000 funds to the
To
fiscal
amend the
year
budget.
23 budget. Yes.
Okay. So that motion,
So I'll make the motion to reopen the budget and accept the bid.
okay. All in favor? Aye. All right. Motion carries. Motion was by, you know who they were by, okay. I don't need to tell you. Sometimes, okay. All right, next item of business, we have amendments, another public hearing for amendments to the consolidated fee schedule resolution for recreation department fees. Josh, who's gonna present this?
Good evening, council members. As staff, we actually recommend that we table this one, as we know there is some work that needs to be done on our field use contracts. Some information came to light. We want to make sure we present the best. This would also include action item 10F. So we recommend we table both of those until we get a couple of concerns resolved to make sure that we have the best thing available for our teams.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, thank you. We'll table that. All right, and we go on to our action items. We have first a Cove Recreation Area, Teddy's Playground, and I believe Josh and Preston are going to present that today.
I'm actually just going to introduce Preston on this one. So an idea came up here with some Roosevelt City property, and we have an incredible committee with our Park and Rec Committee. This is a great example of where our committee can take something by the horns and just run with it and do an incredible thing. So I'm going to turn the time over to Preston. He's our chairman of that committee, and let him explain the idea behind Teddy's Playground, which could be a huge project for the city, entirely led by our Arts Park and Recs Committee. So I'll turn it over to Preston.
Thank you.
And that's one of our main goals. You guys have a lot going on. This is a project that we can take over. And again, I'm Preston Catholic, and part of what we're looking for, and I've been on a committee for about 4 years now. One of our biggest challenges is we've been looking for more recreation for Roosevelt's, for trails, biking, and looking at different kinds of things is finding the areas for it. We've had many failed trail attempts, and I say that as many efforts have gone out to make public trails. One of our biggest setbacks, we've got a great area to recreate, but there's so much private. And so to find areas where we can actually build trails is difficult. And so this is why we're looking at 122 acres there out by the Cove that is owned by the city. If you've been out there, it's the Cove Road, then you head towards Bluebell. It's 1.7 miles to the west. And then right there, you take a turn north, and it's the property. That's right there. We'll have a picture on there. But if we go to the next page, what we'll be doing is I did put a shameless cute plug in there. Why we need some more biking trails. We were looking for approval from the city to be able to put a mountain bike trail and a disc golf course on the 120 acres owned by the city. And we will be heading the project, but it will be overseen by Roosevelt City. So working with Josh and working with the recreation department with Ed and Aaron, making sure that we're all collaborating in what we need to do for this. Looking for us, I'm going to also have a community member, MacArthur Mitchell from the disc golf committee is the chair. He will speak to the growth that we've seen on the current course, and so what we're seeing the need for more holes as well. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll turn it over to him and I'll come.
Again, my name is MacArthur Mitchell. I'm the chairman voted by the disc golf committee last year for the disc golf overall. Just this last month, in the month of April, 99 rounds were scored just at the local Constitution Park, which is only 7 holes, not hole 9. 29 were new players, 79 total hours were logged, and 10 people visited for the first time. We also had 4 people from out of state, including Minnesota, Tennessee, Texas, and Oklahoma. So even though we have a small little 7-hole course, disc golf is a growing sport. People are traveling. I actually met one guy from Minnesota who was traveling down to Arizona, and he just noticed it on the UDisc app and thought he'd stop for a quick round. He had nothing but good comments for how well the park was kept and how fun the course is. So looking at our stats, this is our 2022 stats. So just big numbers. There's 848 total rounds scored on the UDisc app. 80 of those were from our local people, and over 574 hours were spent on the course. So that alone, I can see massive growth, and this is just for 7 holes. The big thing that we are hoping for with this 18-hole course is growth. With the course, if you go to the next slide, yeah. So this is the map I show. Which slide is this one? Yes. This is our projected layout for our disc golf course, which include 18 baskets. And these baskets for us would mean so very much because we would see not only growth locally, and for me and as the disc golf committee, I've seen up to 30 people come weekly to play in disc golf league. But we can also host more tournaments, which should draw people out from the city. If we had a multi-day tournament, that would include amenities of local hotel stays, anything like that. But it's just one of the fastest growing sports in the States, and I'm not gonna touch on it, but I do have an email from the UDisc app stating that over 500,000 people live within 10 kilometers of a disc golf course. And there's pages of that. But as the chairman, I'm passionate about the sport. Working with Dustin, I talk nothing about disc golf, so I just love to see the growth of Teddy's playground and the growth of the disc golf in that. So that was my part. Thank you.
Thank you, MacArthur.
And if we go back to the previous slide, so you can see also where we can lay out the mountain bike course, and this gives you a good picture of the property, if you know which one, if you've ever been out there. So there's the turnoff, you can see, but then we could put a parking lot right in there. And this is a draft map of a mountain bike trail. You would have about a 2-mile loop that you could put in there, which fits a lot of beginner. You can put some intermediate branches off there, or if really you're getting into it, you can loop it 2 or 4 times. So it's a really good property. It has slight elevation changes, nothing drastic where you're having a huge climb that you're gonna have to do. But if you see on that southern part right there, southeastern part, it has some fun rock layouts. And we have some time, we can show some drone footage of the property as well, so give you a good picture of what it looks like. But now speaking to these things, we're gonna look at some of the costs, right? It would take to put in a disc golf course and a mountain bike trail going in. So we can go a couple slides over. So with the disc golf course, getting the 18 baskets, you're looking about $7,000 to $8,000 for 18. We can probably even broker some deals where we can get those covered. On the side note, we do have practices who has a trust for charities who's donated $5,000 to be able to put in 4 disc golf baskets, so we don't have a big chunk of that already covered. Getting some signage for each hole, carpet bags for the signs and the baskets when we put them in. So we're looking about roughly $9,000 for the whole disc golf course. Great thing about a disc golf course is when you put it in, it's in. Not a lot of O&M that goes into those later on. And even repairs on those are minimal, and price on that really isn't high. Mountain bike trail, what we'd be looking at is signage and map and portable restrooms at the parking lot. That would be your highest O&M on there, would just be the restrooms that need to be cleared, but we can put that on schedule for Dustin, who is so happy that I have him doing that. And something that we would like to invest in for this project and then for future projects that the city might have, if we're looking for a trail cat. Talking with Josh, and we're looking at getting something for building trails and future trails. And we've got the nature park going in, but we'll also have some trails going around the city. So that'd be an investment that we can put in that stays with the city and can use for future projects going in there. So we're looking for a total budget up to about $23,000 for this project. Another really good note for this is, and this is something that I've been looking at as chairman of our Parks and Rec Committee, been trying to be responsible with how we spend things and what we've been using it for. This is a project that we've saved our budget, looking at this, we have them so we can get this all paid for from the APRC budget, and this doesn't have to come from the city, so it's already budgeted, and we can get that approved. Moving on to the next slide. So we talked about O&M. With the mountain bike trail, the biggest O&M is just going to be clean up and pumping out those restrooms and garbage collection. For a disc golf course, those baskets have a 25-year warranty. And actually, I was working with them today, and they're easy to work with. You know, they want those baskets to be out there and be used because it's one of the fastest growing sports. The amount of courses that are growing up are high, but they're also being used. Now, if we look to the next slide, which I think is, yes, funding. One of the great things about this park is it is not a traditional park. So what that means is we get opportunities for more funding from the state for recreation. Disc golf, mountain biking, we get both of those things so we've already gotten money for the nature park with the recreation grant, but now we will have this implemented so we can have many grants for any updates or things that we want to put in. And if the trail really gets washed out, it's really bad, we can apply for a restoration grant going through that. Sponsorships, we already have a lot of local businesses who are interested. I've got people lined up who would love to sponsor a basket, bridge, putting in here and there. And that comes with donated materials. We can get a parking lot with road base, piping, roof fencing, and barrels and garbage cans, and all the baskets can be volunteer put in. We've got a bunch of people lined up who said, yeah, we would totally put one in. If we go to the next slide. Here's also I'm really excited about for this. Our timeline isn't huge. This isn't a project that we would spill into next year. We have this done by July. I put us out to grand opening in August, but we can have this map finalized, tested, and really done by September. We can have this done before the nature park, which is a really exciting thing because it's September, and I think we were looking at a timeline of October for the nature park. So we've got 2 parks that could be opening up this year, and we doubled the amount of recreation that Roosevelt has. So if we look at the next slide, something else we've also tinkered with, because we've got the high school mountain bike team, all of our guys go to Uinta, and it's because of venue. They go to McCoy Flats for their practices. They don't have a public venue. Again, that's important, right? I mean, there are private trails that are out here, but not many high school mountain bike teams want to use that because it's on private land. So we would have something that mountain bikers would be here, and our high school could form their own mountain bike team at that point because we have something that's local, that's close, that they can use. And MacArthur just spoke on it. Future tournaments. Our last tournament had about
62.
62, and that was held at the golf course here. With 18 baskets put in, you can more than double that number of participants, and you do that a couple times a year, and it really starts to grow. And another thing we discussed and looked at is the DNR would like this. It's a great place to be able to have a 3D archery venue. I don't know if any of you guys know what those are. but they're also a great event host. Of course, we close down disc golf, mountain biking. I know, we're talking 3D, now it's moving 3D. But it's a place where you can set up deer and bear, and people can go, and it's a tournament where they go and people can get best shots. Well traveled. McCarthy's also one of those guys who would travel to one of those. But we're hoping to have a venue where we get people to come travel here. I'll let Aaron speak to some of the possibilities we have with high school mountain biking specifically, because he's been looking into this, so I'll let him speak to that.
So as I started talking about this, we thought, let's go big. If we're gonna do it, let's go big. One of the possibilities is actually having a pre-approved Utah high school mountain bike track. There's only a half dozen in the state, and so we reached out to their organization. And they're really excited about it. They're gonna be out here this Saturday to kind of take a look at it. Don't know what's gonna happen, where it's gonna go. There's a lot of specifications that they have to meet the requirements to have races, but when they have a race, they bring in 3,000 to 4,000 people. And so it's a pretty big impact on the communities that host these events. They figure that it's about $300,000 that comes back to the community when they host one of these events. We had to get them numbers on all the hotels around and restaurants just to see if we could even host an event like this. And so after getting them some of the numbers they wanted, they're excited about it. So they'll be here this Saturday just to kind of look at it and see if it's feasible. They also have some resources to kind of help us if it's something that they think it can be done. So we'll keep you updated on that. But
Cool.
that's a possibility with this as well.
They're big. I don't know if you guys been to those competitions, but parents, kids.
So what is it called, the competition?
That's just one of those high school mountain bike races.
Okay.
Bruno hosted a regional one, and they get about 3,000 competitors who come.
It's the fastest young sport in the state. It's crazy.
So we did mountain biking, disc golf. So my pickleball, but that's another topic. Too soon. But my last slide here. Now that's not one of our baskets that we have here. That was a Golden Valley. But a primitive course, these things, people will travel for. This is a great opportunity to really grow the Roosevelt's recreational footprint. And I would say when we're catching up, I think one of the big things we want to do more like Bruno's, like we can be different, but we can also expand on some of the things we have. And that's one of my favorite things. Even with starting disc golf, we've seen people travel from Vernal to Roosevelt because we have the courses. We've got different things. And so hopefully, as we diversify this, we invite mountain biking, disc golf, possible archery things that we can really start to increase that flow of people coming to Roosevelt for some more things. And the land that we've got, we don't want to just sit in there, so hopefully we can use it. Now, are there any questions that you guys have about property, things that we've got going on?
So my question, I just have one question because I work in natural landscapes all the time, and I'm just curious, like if we bring in 4,000 people, how are we gonna keep that under control so that the land doesn't get totally trampled? Because if we want to keep it natural looking, as a natural landscape, it really does require a little bit of thought. So maybe just, I love the idea. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. Is it all paid for then? You say it's all paid for?
We can have all this paid for, yeah.
Okay. And how does that work? Like, what would we do for that?
If I can just add a little bit as well, so the property is already owned by the city, it's not in use, it's not being put to any use. And so the funds to actually build this project are being provided by the Arts Park and Rec Committee completely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so right now, the proposal tonight is not asking council for any funds whatsoever. We're asking council's permission to go ahead to move forward with the project, allowing our Arts Park and Rec Committee to lead this project and make it a reality. And there are a lot of things that we have full events. We are going to need more planning. That's why we have the Utah High School Activity Association coming out to do a walkthrough to see if it's feasible. Right now, our proposal is this is going to be a local project with endless possibilities. And just so council is aware, I've taken most of the department heads out there. We've talked about the impact as far as city staff, what it would take. And that's where having a committee like this is very engaged. And what a great way to empower them when they're already gung ho and they're going to knock it out of the park. They're phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I just want to thank you for your work on this. I mean, this is huge for you to put all that time and energy and thought into this. And so thank you for presenting that. Any other thoughts from the council?
I want to echo that. You guys do a great job. Appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've worked with Preston a lot on that committee, and this is great because I've kind of been hounding them over the last little while to get rid of that surplus budget. Because I mean, they do a lot, but a lot of times he goes out and gets all the funding paid for it anyways, and so we don't use anything out of the budget. And so this is a great idea, I think, with this land.
Yeah, and it's a good use of the land, I think, because it's out of the city, but we could still benefit from it. And probably benefit more by keeping it and doing something like this than we would from selling the property. So
There's not any issues that will come up with, I don't know, something on the land that wetlands or something that might restrict what we do. I mean, sometimes there's.
Currently, if you're not super familiar with the properties where the Campbell wells are, they're not in use. There's no plan to use them, but there is always the worst case scenario where we might have to. With this project, it is one that we could open up those wells and start using them again. So as far as that, no, we would need to do some more investigation if there were any different type of habitat or something. That would be the next step. But at this point, we just want permission to move forward.
Yeah.
Because we've been out to visit the property, we've looked at it, but we haven't taken any steps because, well, we don't have approval to cancel, move forward.
okay. I guess we entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the project.
Okay, before we do our final vote,
I'm just gonna ask if you're gonna take any public comments on it.
oh, sure, yeah. I don't have a problem.
No.
Let's go ahead and hear what you might have to say.
I'm for it. I'm a big mountain biker, so I'm for this project. I like it, but there are things that I don't like about what he just presented, and that's the restroom. I have 2 toddlers that I will be taking on this trail, and to fit 2 toddlers into a portable restroom is dang near impossible.
Okay,
I think going forward, that should be changed. There should be funding provided for a permanent restroom in that. I would also like to see a smaller route on that to go around the track, because 2 miles for my 3-year-old is going to be way too much. It seems short, but it's too much.
And that's because we could even have, we were looking at that left section, having that be a small little loop for little kids.
Yeah. So
And that's a good point.
if you could work that through, because I'm going to take I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And the 4-year-old can ride right now, the 2-year-old cannot, but she will. And that's going to be our destination for mountain biking right now, because I don't want to drive to McCoy Flats to ride for a short period of time. So that's going to be our destination for it. But those 2 things, I would like to see. Preston's got bike repair stands that he's talking about for the city. I would like to see one of those out there. That's an additional cost for that trailhead.
okay.
And then I'm a fat biker. I like to ride in the snow. If there's snow in this thing, I would like to see it potentially be groomed for winter use.
Okay.
I can do that.
All right, okay, so I'm going to summarize since it wasn't said at the microphone. So we had, basically, you were suggesting we might need bigger bathrooms to accommodate children. Then a smaller loop to accommodate children as well. Maybe put in a repair stand in the future, and then also the last one was to groom it for snow. So we'll take those comments into consideration as we plan and appreciate those.
And I've been to those NICA events, the high school mountain biking events I've set up for them, and they are big.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know if this area would support
That's what we'll
that
see it
trail,
happen, though.
because
So there's some
they-
feedback on it.
Cool. So yeah, I would just recommend, I mean, if you know Preston and those
Yeah,
guys, talk with them, and definitely, you said you go to the meetings earlier on in the meeting.
Yeah.
I keep telling him he needs to come
So-
up, be with, on the committee, but.
Right.
We should have asked that. You ran this by the APR committee and approved it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now we have a motion on the table to approve moving forward in allowing the Arts Park and Recreation Committee to use this property. And we have a second. Did you get, who was the motion made, but just to?
I love that Councilman Clower made the motion, it was seconded by Councilman White.
Okay. And then, I guess all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you. And thanks for putting up with my greeniness and not knowing what to do here. Okay. So now our next item of business is UORG 2023 grant acceptance for the nature park.
Councilman, so tonight we're requesting that we have the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant for the nature park. This is not a stumbling over repeating myself. This is number 3 that we have been approved for our nature park. We don't have the actual agreement here. It was hopefully going to be here tonight, but what we're requesting from council is when the agreement does come, that we authorize the mayor to sign the acceptance of that grant. This one is for an additional $186,000 that we can use at the nature park. So, and I do want to commend Sunshine and Ryan have been great in helping get these going forward. And as I said, this is our 3rd grant down at the nature park, just from the outdoor recreation. So that's huge. That's the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. That takes a lot of hard work to bring in those grants, and appreciate you and the staff for doing that. I guess, any thoughts by the council?
I move that we let the mayor sign it.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman White, second by Councilman Allen. All in favor? Aye. All right, that motion approves. I do vote even when I'm mayor pro tem, right? Just making sure. Okay, next item of business, Cottonwood Creek Grant Approval, Phase 1.
So this is a grant application that's submitted by the city a very long time ago, and we did get formal approval from it. Larry, forgot his name from UDOT. Larry Montoya has been instrumental in helping us stay on top of this one as well. So we did receive the actual grant. We had a copy of it in here. It's okay. We have that actual paperwork, but it's through UDOT. It is for $643,000 grant. With $257,000 as a match from the city, but this is for our Cottonwood Creek Trail project. It would be for Phase 1 that would essentially go from the golf course to Strata. Not to be confused with Phase 1 of the nature park. So we have Phase 1 of the Cottonwood Creek Trail project, Phase 1 of nature park, Phase 1 of our trail system in general. So this is a specific Phase 1 based off how the grant was written. Larry Montoya has been great to work with us. And so our request tonight is that council authorize the mayor to sign that grant for $643,000 and $643,400 towards our Cottonwood Creek Phase 1 trail from golf course to Strata.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, thank you, Josh. Guess you're probably up again.
Excellent.
So Moon Lake easement approval.
So this is an easement for Moon Lake to provide power for our new flagpole that is scheduled to go in there above the drive-in theater. There's only 2 power poles to get in there. It's a pretty straightforward project, but we do need to get an easement to get power up to that flagpole.
Okay.
So the request tonight is for council to approve this easement with Moon Lake.
And it's an above ground easement, so there's going to be a wire that will be above ground and be running up there. Okay.
And Moon Lake has been wonderful to work with.
Okay, and that's really nice because they're going to do it, install it for free, aren't they? Or are we going to pay for
We're
it?
still discussing that. They've been great to work with.
Okay, so they've been great to work with. We appreciate that.
And when I say I do mean that literally, they've been great.
Okay, awesome.
I'm not being facetious. Very, very truthful.
All right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to put it underground because we're going over a cliff ridge and it'd leave a bigger scar, an eyesore than it would be just to run it above ground. Any other thoughts?
I don't know if I can vote on this where I work at Moon Lake, and I don't know if it's a conflict or not, but
I think you can vote on it as long as you state the conflict. In my case, a lot of times I can't just because it's against the ethics laws of the federal government for me to do that, so.
I stated my conflict.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, next item of business, we have Cherry Peak Resort contract approval for our 4th of July entertainment.
So this is a unique one. It's not technically a contract. It's more of an update to our PO. The thing is here, there were a couple things that changed on here, and because council had already approved this, we just wanted to bring it back to council. So Grant, they even need to formally approve this at this point. You've approved the funding for it. We just want it back in front of you to keep you updated.
Still within the parameters that you guys set for funding, I don't think that it requires approval. And when I reviewed last week, I don't think that this amounts to a contract anyway, but it is an update for us on what they.
So the main thing I want to point out, it's actually less than council has already approved because we put something in there before we weren't sure. But it's just an update, keeping you abreast of what's going on. We will have fireworks for this event.
Awesome. Cool, thank you. Thank you. All right, so that's something that we're approving in the PO tonight. Is that the purchase orders for tonight? Is that something that we're gonna be? Okay, okay, thank you. All right, the field use agreement. We're skipping over that one. Okay. So I guess the last, we're gonna skip over item H as well, which was radio purchase approval, I believe. So I think our last item of business.
Yes, we still have items G and H.
Oh, we do have item H. Okay.
You're just
My bad.
tabling item F.
Okay, I thought, okay, you're good. Thank you. Okay, so next item of business, Drew, public infrastructure policy.
Take a large pizza, please. Okay, tonight we have with us Marcus and Wyatt. They're going to talk to us a little bit about public infrastructure districts. This is no negative impact to the city. What it does do, and I'm gonna probably hack this, so you're gonna have to.
I'm sure you're doing a great job.
So Wyatt has recently purchased property and annexed a large tract of property into Roosevelt City, if you guys recall, and is trying to figure a way out how to get some assistance on utilities and streets and such to develop this. There is funding or bonds available to help with this task in form of a taxing district that they would basically manage with their development. And I'll let Marcus and Wyatt, if you guys would like to.
Thank you. Marcus Keller with Cruz and Associates. So Wyatt had reached out to me, said he had a big master plan type development. And just be aware, these are typically reserved for those larger communities, 100+ type housing, just because of the economies of scale that would be needed for this. So this isn't going to be a tool that finances a subdivision or something like that. So I would imagine it's, and that's probably to your benefit as well, so you don't get tons of these questions and inquiries about it. But long story short, so Wyatt had reached out, he had a master plan community he wanted to look at. One of the issues that he had said was, hey, I need some help or some ideas on how to bring up some of the utilities from the city and potentially upsize some of those lines for future development, because as it cuts through some of the properties, other people may connect to it and so on and so forth. So as I talked to him about it, there's a new tool, or relatively new, about 2 to 3 years old, called Public Infrastructure Districts. That was created by the state legislature. It is a tool used to help development on larger scales to make organized and efficient planning possible versus piecemealing infrastructure or communities together. So after I talked to Wyatt, I called Josh. I said, hey, we've got quite a bit of information on this. I've worked on PIDs down in Hurricane, down in Washington. places that are experiencing lots of growth, Cedar City, Erda, Grantsville, all these places are being approached with this because it does allow for a couple of unique things that you haven't seen before. And so what the PID essentially is, just to kind of give you a good base so you kind of understand all the bullet points associated with it, it's an entity or district around someone's property. So things to note, it has to be 100% consent. Somebody cannot be included into the PID that does not want to be included. And so that's why it's usually a developer tool, because they own all the property at the original state. So this isn't going to be something that can be dropped on 100 homes that are currently existing. It has to be done early on or require 100% consent from whoever lives in that area if it's on top of an older area. And so what this does is the public infrastructure, it has taxing authority and special assessment authority, because I just want you to be aware, because these may be two options depending on potentially what happens and why it's development. But it allows for people that are moving in or going to be residents, either both commercial and primary residential or secondary residential homes, kind of just whatever's going to be on the property. It allows them or includes them into a higher property taxing area to pay for the public infrastructure typically required to build that area. And so a lot of the ways I say this is that people that are incurring the additional cost of moving into the city are the ones that are going to be paying for that additional cost. So to bring in sewer, water, utilities, roads, things that perhaps the city doesn't want to be a part of, doesn't want to pay for, but actually wants within that area, that's what they would be taxed, an additional tax, in order to pay for those improvements or those utilities going in there. It has to be used to finance public infrastructure. It can't be used to finance private. It can't be used to finance anything that's not going to be dedicated back to the city, back to the special service district. So if there's a water district, sewer district that runs that, these entities have to donate whatever asset they finance back to whoever's going to be doing the O&M on that, because they have no O&M capabilities. The tax simply pays for the capital project and usually the debt that's associated with it, period. They're not going to be charging an ongoing O&M. As soon as the debt is paid off, that's associated with whatever it's financing, whether that's the roads, the sewers, the utility, the PID dissolves and no longer collects a tax. So it's for a specific purpose outlined in what we call a governing document. So this will probably be a document that comes before you to create the PID in a future meeting. But once those are created, they tax based off those property taxes that are allocated in that governing document on those residents within that area, pays off the bonds. Once the bonds are paid off, it dissolves. Things to note, this does not associate anything with the city's credit. This does not pledge anything on the city side, so you're not pledging water, you're not pledging sewer, you're not pledging sales tax. It's simply based off the credit of the PID within that area. I will say this as a caveat too, when I sent Drew a PID policy, I think it's important to be wise about these to make sure that you are making good decisions. Some of these policies are ones that other cities have adopted. I think there's limitations. By state statute, you can have up to 15 mils or 1.5% of additional taxing authority as the max. And that can be changed per the governing document that's accepted by the city. I think that's extremely high and ridiculous for anything dealing with residential. So as part of the policy that I've given Drew to review, we've kind of set limits. If there are certain exceptions, commercial, we think it should be treated a little bit different than residential because we feel like they're sophisticated investors that are going to be going in there. So maybe they can get taxed a little bit higher than the residential PID. And there's a lot more information. I'm kind of feeding you guys with a fire hose here. But I think long story short, this is a way for people that are going to be moving into your community to pay for the additional public infrastructure needed to support their community. It allows the developer to spread this liability out over the life of the bond. So as people buy the home or buy into the property, they'll be making the payments through their property tax on that bond. And also too, it adds regional benefits so that, assuming not everybody that's going to be connecting to that utility line or part of the PID, there could be agreements so that if somebody connects within a certain amount of years, then, an additional fee may be required to offset some of that bond payment so that what we see is sometimes people are like, well, I'll just let you build it and then I'll connect in after the fact. which is unfair, in my opinion, to the people that are paying the property tax for that project. So we have pioneering agreement language, stuff like that that can be implemented too. But the nice thing is, all this has to come before you, has to be approved by you. You'll see all the details, you'll see all the requests as part of the bid, and this will all be spelled out per the governing document at that time. So again, this is just more of a conversation to see if you have any concerns, any questions. I know Wyatt's kind of wanting to use this as part of his development to kind of master plan and provide an upgraded benefit to the people in his area by using this. So.
Okay. I think you did a great job explaining it. Is there any other questions?
One thing that crossed my mind, and this is just for my information.
No, questions are good.
Say you set this up, you have the property, you set this up. How soon do people have to be buying this land and start paying into, say you do it, you put it all in and nobody comes, who pays for it?
So that's actually the nice thing about the limited tax, and I won't go into the special assessment because we're still exploring two different options, but let's talk on the limited tax because that's directly related to the additional mill levy within that area. So these are what would be issued, it's called limited GO bonds. And so what would happen is that the PID, because what happens is the developer, his team, the landowners, whoever that may constitute, so if there's multiple landowners, they become the PID board. They are now a government entity, but their only job is to pay the bonds, period. Just so you know. So they can't go in and raise taxes or anything else. They have to get additional permissions from you if that were to change outside of what you approve in the governing document. Sorry, it's a long answer to yours, but I think a little background is good. And so their goal and their job is to pay the bonds. And so they authorize bond payment. It's kind of a, I won't say pointless or fruitless type position, but it's definitely just very mundane at that point because they don't have very many responsibilities. But so what happens is if a limited GO bond is issued, so again, a little bit of a long answer, but so you understand the context. Let's say that you approve 6 mills as part of this taxing area. So it goes over Wyatt's land as part of what he owns, or maybe others that have joined in and say, hey, we want to be a part of this. We want to be a part of the PID because we want access to your roads, your utility lines, whatever that may be. So the land has encompassed the PID, let's say it's at 6 mills. What we do is we analyze that and say, okay, based off their development, we assume that they're going to build X amount of houses each year. It's going to have a taxable value of X amount, year over year. And that's going to generate, based off those 6 mills, let's say $500,000 a year. So that'll be $500,000 a year throughout the life, 30 years in most cases, with a 10-year runway in case they do fall behind on bond payments. So now they're generating about $500,000 a year. Now let's say, okay, we say, great, we pencil that in, we take that to investors and say, based off his development agreements, based off his development plan, here's what we think is a practical and logical capitalization of their cash flows. And so we may be able to borrow, in rough numbers, $5 million based off that, based off what the developers agree that cash flow would support. So, and this is actually a really cool thing about the limited GO bid. So developers give the money, and let's say there's a slowdown in the economy. Let's say he only gets halfway through the project, can't build the other houses for whatever reason, there's not a need. The investors have agreed, as long as he's paying that 6 mills, and this would even be on the open space land that he currently owns, so that would be taxed at a lower rate. As long as they're making up to that 6 mil payment every year. So I'll give you an extreme example just to put it into context. Let's say he only builds one house out of 200. That person's going to be paying their 6 mil property tax levy on their house. It's not going to be nearly enough to cover the bond. As long as they're making their payment that was agreed to in the governing document, and they've been noticed of, that would be special about moving into that area, there's nothing the investors can do. They can't come in and foreclose. They can't come in and take their property, because even though the bond may be going into default in ways, they're living up to their obligations. So it protects, in my opinion, the individual investor. It would actually protect Wyatt and his group, because again, he would probably have a lot of open space, so it's not a high taxable value. As long as he's making his 6 mil payment, then they can't come after him or his assets because he's living within the covenant that was set on the bond docs. So it gives them some wiggle. Now, I say that as an extreme example. Investors probably will get mad. They'd say, what the heck? Why are you not doing this? What did you do wrong? Type situation. But as far as recourse goes and going after land, there's not much they can do about it. So
What if the developer goes bankrupt? So say there are some houses there that are paying their 6 mils, but the open space, it's not. What happens?
So the development itself, so if Wyatt can't continue to make his 6 mil payment on his land, they could potentially go after him through property tax foreclosure. And so that could go as to the first lien, most likely to the bondholders. But again, those homes, those are gonna be separately outside, so as long as they're making their payments, again, nothing they can do about it. Now, hope is that the development goes really, really well, and that these bonds are gonna get refunded, lower interest rates. After the refunding, the mill levy will go down, or maybe they can pay it off in 15 or 20 years instead of the 30 years. I mean, that's the hope, is that you'll have a very good development, and you can pay these bonds off early. But worst case situation, and this is what people will be aware of as they move into it, they may just have to pay that additional property tax throughout the life of the bond, regardless if it's defaulted on or not, just because that's what they've agreed to do to move into that home. So,
Okay, can I ask you some questions on the governing board?
please.
I remember how it gets created with the creating entity initially appointing members. Was there anything in state code that specifies the number of members on the board?
So the ones that we've seen, and I apologize, I'm not sure if they mandate it, but typically it's 3. And state code actually requires, so the creating entity doesn't dictate the board, it's whoever the landowner is that's gonna be signing the petition to basically tax themselves. But the thing is, once they start selling off those properties, they're mandated by state law that has to go to the homeowners, that the developer can't just keep control of the PID board after, I believe it's 4 or 5 years, basically after the development's built out.
And they have to do it through an election.
Correct, and the funny part is we're actually more nervous that people just aren't going to run than we are, just because, again, their main function would be making sure the bond's paid, which they're not gonna be doing much. That's gonna be coming mostly through the county, through that taxing entity, hitting the trustee. They may authorize it, and they may have 1 or 2 decisions throughout the life of the bond on if they want to refund it. That's all the bid board is responsible for.
Is this proposed development, is all of it within city boundaries right now, or is part of it still in the county?
So I think there may be some pieces that are in the county, but what we've seen kind of as, I don't want to say tradition, but what we've seen most kids do, if there's pieces that, the person is kind of on the fence on whether or not they want to be in the PID, or maybe it's in a county piece, so the city has to go through an annexation process, but we want to go ahead and get it created. The PID itself can have annexation boundaries as well. Those annexation, they can't just come in and say, hey, we're going to annex you. It would still require 100% consent. It may just say, okay, well, this landowner, he has 50 acres. He wants to be a part of the PID because he wants to get the benefit, but he's probably about 6 months out before he can annex into Roosevelt City, where there may be some concerns. So we're going to go ahead and say, here's the initial PID boundaries, and here's the annexation area of the PID boundaries. And so as long as somebody's within that annexation area and they have 100% consent, which would require a petition from them, then they can opt to join the PID at a later date, but they can't ever be coerced or forced to join. It would have to be at their discretion. And obviously it would have to be within the city boundaries. We can't put, Roosevelt can't create a PID that has Duchesne County property. Duchesne would have to do that themselves. But they can say that it's an annexation area, so if you ever annex it and then they want to join the PID, they could.
Is the PID able to get later bonds? They're not limited to just ones up front if they annex something in after?
So some of the larger PIDs that we're seeing, they do anticipate that. This would actually be more on the smaller scale side, where we anticipate that it's just going to be for this project. But for instance, like Olympia Hills out in Harriman, that's 5,000 acres, they're anticipating that there's going to be several tranches of bonds that take place as they annex in more and more areas, or as they just develop more, so they don't issue 500 million today, but they can only realistically spend 100 million over the next 3 years building the roads or whatever that may be. So you can issue more, but the city, that would have to be all part of the governing document, because the city says, we are going to cap your authorization at X amount. So regardless of how much you annex or how much you're building or whatever the discretion is of the developer, you can never bond for more than X amount regardless of how big your development is. And so the mill levy and the authorization amount and the term of the bonds are all dictated as part of the governing document.
That's close to the last question.
Yeah.
And the last one's just, where's infrastructure bonds, did the creation document specify certain types of infrastructure, or is it?
So state law dictates public infrastructure. Again, this kind of gets into the weeds based off the PID and what you guys want to see, but it would definitely be within the city's rights to say, we're only going to allow you to be able to use these PID proceeds for this regional improvement, that regional improvement, and that all gets described in the document.
Okay, I mean, like roads, sewer, water, does it specify that it can only be used for a certain?
Yeah, you can specify certain types of what they can spend it on. If you said, well, we just only want them to spend on those three, or you can even go more specific and say, well, we're only allowing them to spend it on this line or this road specifically. It's really at your discretion. I would say those are good conversations to have because sometimes it kind of gets down that, most of the times developers are going to have to bring private money. This is not only to finance an entire project, but to pay for a portion of it that helps offset some of the costs because these PID dollars are tax exempt as well, which gives them theoretically a lower interest rate than private equity. And so a lot of that value can be shared and so on and so forth. But you're right. I would just say there's a wide range. Some say it has to be whatever the utility we want or whatever it is. Some have said, specifically X, Y, and Z project. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's just whatever the city's comfortable with. Good questions.
Yeah, thank you, Grant, for those questions. And thank you,
Yeah.
Marcus. Is it Marcus?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your presentation. Given what's been presented, is there any other questions from the council? All right. We don't need to make a motion to, do we need to make a motion to proceed discussions about that, or can that be done without a motion?
You can just set it back on your agenda for future discussion.
Okay.
And I think kind of the point of one of the reasons why and what we expressed to Josh was too is, and maybe just kind of the nods and, I haven't had anything thrown at me at this point. It sounds like this may be a project the city wants that, depending on what we include as part of the infrastructure, is something that could benefit the city as well. One thing that Wyatt's going to work on is he goes through his development as a development agreement. So it'll kind of be the devil in the details right at that point. But we just want to make sure that as he's planning for this, that there's just not a sound no. That this is an option, we can explore this option and potentially include that as part of the development agreement that says the city will, maybe not accommodate, but be amenable to listening to what PID may be available to help with this project. That's, I think, what we're trying to just get a feel for today.
Okay. Thank you. I know that from my perspective, I think it makes sense to do something like this because Roosevelt City, if the people moving onto the property are willing to take the risk and there's investors that are willing to take the risk, and we just kind of guide what we're willing to allow and whatnot as far as this project. If we can come to a win-win agreement with the developer, that I think that benefits the city a lot, especially if people are willing to pay the price for that development. If we can come up with a reasonable price, or if the developer can come up with a reasonable price. And any other thoughts? I know I've asked that before, but okay, we'll move on then. I noticed there's a back page as well. Are we going to hit those agenda items too? Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the radio purchase approval. That Officer Tucker, Lieutenant Tucker.
This has been kind of a short history for like 10 years or so, for a long time. Utah Public Safety had wanted us to move over to 800 megahertz radios. And the problem was that they didn't offer any money for anybody to do it. And so counties were stuck with, all of a sudden Utah said, hey, we're going to 800 megahertz radios. And all of a sudden they had to come up with $120,000 to get the radios. Well, about 6 months ago, L3 Harris won the bid to do the 800 radios out here. UCA stepped up and they negotiated a price for everybody to get radios
And then they also, depending on the size of your municipality or your county, gave a discount. So we had retail, then we had their, what they negotiated it to, and then they paid 80% of that, and then we have to pay 20%. So we put in a chunk to get 16 vehicle radios, which will outfit all our vehicles. And that amount comes up to, for us to pay, $11,781.86. And that gives us 16 of those radios. The good thing is, well, the bad thing is it's over 10,000, so I have to bring it to city council. The good thing is we want to use the alcohol money grant to pay for it, so it's not even in the budget. Since then, we also, do you have that other paper? Since then, they said that we're going to expand that, and we're going to let you do portable radios also, so they did the same thing. So we wanted to get 20 portable radios. These are the ones you have on you. And our part of that, this is for 20 of them, is $13,292.99. Bad news is it's over 10,000. The good news is we also want to use the alcohol money for this. So we're just asking permission to buy this.
Just a little clarification here, and this is important that you know this. The first radios that he talked about, it's $176,000 worth of radios.
Is the retail.
Which we would be paid $11,781. The second chunk of radios, are $170,800 worth of radios, which we will be paying $13,292 for. The $11,781 is funds that we have readily available now. They get the liquor control allotment. Every year we get a lump sum in December. The $11,000 is money we have received December. The $13,000, what we're also requesting is that we, to be able to take advantage of this in the time frame that this is allowed, be able to use funds that will be forthcoming in the next fiscal year in December of 23, just so that we don't lose this availability. It is a UCA ARPA funding something.
Not the Utah Communication Authority. Okay. Can you remind me where the alcohol funds come from?
It's an allotment that we get from the state of Utah.
Okay.
It's a liquor control allotment.
Do you know exactly what?
You want the source of it? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm just curious what they were, where they came from. It sounds like they're given to us each year from the state of Utah
Each
for
year,
alcohol.
yeah, and there's a formula of alcohol convictions, alcohol sold, population, and a couple other factors that come up. They have a chunk of money, and that percentage number comes up, and usually end up with about 18, 19,000.
20 to 24.
20 to 24 is quite good. I like it better. That we do. It is kind of limited. A lot of for patrol or putting towards alcohol apprehension or so, which of course the radios in that function.
And we've used other just.
Yeah, I think it's a great.
K9, we used it for the command center.
We did, yeah.
The motor home.
Yeah, we're getting bang for our
Yeah, I think this is great. I'm all in favor of it. How's the council feel? What are your thoughts?
I agree.
Good. You need a motion? What motion do we need to make for this?
We need your approval. I mean, this is not a lot different than a PO approval. We just need your approval for the spending on the 11,000. We will have to send them 5,800 upfront.
Tomorrow. We have it in the budget
Tomorrow's the
too. So.
deadline. And on the other, we just need a motion that we have approval to use next year's funding in advance. Will be, it's in the budget. It just will be spent.
Okay, Dustin will make that motion. Seconded by Councilman Clower. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm excited for you to have what you need.
Good deal.
Good. Okay, next item of business, fiscal year 2024 tentative budget approval.
I'll just come back up here. Okay, you have a huge pile of papers in front of you, so I'll try not to overwhelm you. What we're proposing tonight is the fiscal year 24 budget for the general water and sewer funds, as well as the capital projects fund. So you have in front of you something that I do not have apparently in front of me. The pages that are the summary, they are in, I put that in green on the page. Thank you. This is just like the monthly summary that I give you on the financials, so I gave you a summary of the budget.
I got an extra here.
Oh, I've got Josh's now, so thank you. So basically, what we're proposing this year, we had a $9.064 million budget. For fiscal year 24, we are proposing a $9.4 million budget for the general budget. ARPA funds have all been transferred, and they are included in the capital budget. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We were actually able, because the amount we received in the ARPA funds was under a threshold, we were able to justify that we were using that for lost revenue. And so I just did that. It's all been swept over. So that one will go away. Debt service, not a lot of change there. We make the payment on the aquatic center. Capital project. I do not have the fiscal year 24 in here, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. We were working on that until 3 minutes before we walked in here. So the water utility, not a lot of changes. The revenue expectation is 3.8 million, which is it is exactly the same as for the fiscal year 23 budget. Not a lot of changes, a little slight reduction in the expenditures, and operational income being at 785,000. And then you have the non-operating items, bringing the income from the water utility at 840,000. Sewer utility, definitely some difference year on year. It's a decline. A lot of this has to do with remapping of departments and personnel and different things that we've done. We've also moved, like stormwater has moved from water to sewer and some of those things. So, but total income, when all said and done, for sewer will be 33,772. Sanitation fund, unknowing what's going to happen going forward, I just did that based on what we have done historically. With that said, this is the detail. If you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of what brings us to those numbers, that's all in here. You also have a great big sheet that should look familiar to you. This is a copy of last year's capital projects, and it includes the third column over, which is spend. That's the year-to-date spend that we have already spent. Showing you the balance and what we project to be spending on those projects before the end of this fiscal year. The remaining shows only highlighted in yellow those that we anticipate rolling over into projects that have just for whatever reason not been completed. And the small piece of paper gives you a summary of that. We had $11.3 million worth of projects in our capital budget last year. We actually spent 2.2 million, and we expect to spend another 2.7 before the end of the year, leaving 6.3 million unspent. We're anticipating carrying over 1.7 million of that, which would leave an unspent from that original budget of 4.6 million. And the projects that we have before us right now that made the cuts for the next fiscal year are coming in at 4.5 million. Basically, what we need tonight is we need approval of this proposed budget, knowing that it is exactly that, it is a proposed budget. I think you got my memo. It was a very long-winded memo explaining to me the processes that we go through before we get to the final on this budget. And we would like to propose a working session the first Tuesday of June, which is, I believe, the 6th, for the budget, answer any additional questions, give you additional details about the capital projects that we're proposing, and, answer any questions you have after you've had the chance to go through all the details.
Good. That's it?
That's it. We just need the approval for the tentative budget, and this will be the one we'll start working off of and go forward.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
Move that we approve the tentative budget.
I'll second
We have a motion from Councilman White and a second by Councilman Allen. Is that right? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. It's the approved proposed budget now, right? For those things. And what about the meeting on the first? Is that something, that's basically just something that's already scheduled, so we're good
Yeah,
to go?
we'll just set up a work meeting for that night, and do something casual with dinner or whatever, like we did before.
Okay.
Spend a lot of time looking at numbers, I know.
That's a lot of capital projects. You guys are amazing, and I know we spent a lot less this year than we had planned, but it's been a crazy year. You guys are working really hard, and we appreciate it. Hopefully we can get as much or more done next year, so. Okay, I guess item J, we have council assignment.
I recommend that we table that item as well. Councilman Uzenmark and Mayor Burr here, I recommend we table that, so.
Sounds good.
But I think we'll just sign it all down.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We don't got a problem with dealing with it right now. Okay, so now for discussion items, we have a PIO policy update.
And I'll make it really quick. It's more of a collection area of direction for you all. If you remember, it's been several months at this point, I brought a redlined copy of our dissemination of public information policy before you. Again, it's been a long time, but from what I remember, when we all looked over it, you didn't have a lot of feedback or concerns on some of the revisions that I proposed, which were largely to make the policy make a little bit more sense with how you actually have to do the job. Giving information out to the public. And what I'm hoping for is to get a little direction on this item here, this one, the prohibition against public dialogue. It's a little bit tricky. The way I read that is essentially that on city social media accounts, we can't comment back, right? But we can send a message to a citizen if it's something that we think really needs to be addressed, but that we can't engage in open dialogue. I recognize there's definitely a lot of times when responding to a comment is not going to be a beneficial course of action. You don't need to answer a question 10 times. It might not be productive if somebody is very frustrated with the city to respond on Facebook, right? That might be when it's more productive to send them a message and say, hey, come to council, we'll do this. But this area, I think, I would like to remove that and address engaging with people appropriately as more of an administrative policy and training topic, not something that is completely prohibited by the resolution. I'm responsible to feedback on how you felt.
Okay, so I remember when we talked about this originally, when the policy first came out, that was something that the mayor really felt strongly about, and I personally had agreed with him at the time. And I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but we were seeing a lot of back and forth and it wasn't pretty for the city, in my opinion. And so I think as a protection, that's obviously why it was put in there, but how does the rest, I think ultimately, as far as like giving guidance today, I would like this to have the mayor here to also just provide his input. I don't have a problem with coming up with like a surefire way how to deal with or how to engage and putting a policy in that way so that it's clear how we engage so that we're still protecting the city and stuff like that. But
One thing I would note is that I've compared social media policies from, I would say, 10 other cities in Utah and a couple of federal policies and some private ones as well. And ours is the only one that I've seen that specifically addresses comments. And I agree, I know it's important to Mayor Bird, and so I'm happy to come back and ask the question again later. I just would maybe ask everyone to think about the purpose of having social media, and if we're not gonna be able to have, you know, if any dialogue is prohibited outside of a private messenger window, we might be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot as far as why we have that.
yeah, sometimes it's just for information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of times when dialogue is perfectly okay. And I mean, I kind of put the trust back in you guys, you know what you're doing. You're not gonna get into a fight on the city's social media for no reason, right?
I don't want to. That's not my favorite thing to do.
I definitely don't see an issue with being able to have an open dialogue, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions that come, you know, on there that would be a lot easier to just answer right there.
And I trust that you would do the right thing. It's just what if
Right, it's not about me knowing about the position.
it's a little bit more engaged and could cause some issues, so.
Well, I can bring this back before you next time when Mayor Bird is here.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I would open up. I mean, whatever these guys want to do.
You mentioned, some type of policy that governs this kind of thing. If you could have an example or kind
Of
of.
other cities' policies?
Yeah, just what would that look like? What would it allow, what would it not allow? That would be helpful to me.
Okay, as far as a administrative, and if that works more the training.
This obviously is in there because we saw some things maybe not appropriate. We don't want it to go there.
So you're maybe suggesting still governing this in the resolution, but maybe making it more of a guideline than.
Just what is allowed and what's not allowed kind of a thing. That way, we're not worried that something that is appropriate will happen.
There's some examples would be good, this is an area
Well, that's where I struggle with finding examples. That's why I realized that we're unique in addressing this in our policy.
Well, and I think it's pretty common. I know you say that you have never seen it, and maybe, but I haven't looked into this myself. I know I work for the federal government, and I've never seen them engage after putting out a post. But maybe I'll look into it a little bit. The thing is we go to great lengths to make sure when we put out a post, it's been proofread and everything. And those kind of things don't happen when you just respond, especially if motions are getting involved and stuff like that. Not to say that you would do that, but
no,
just as a thought. So I think the best course of action here would be for you to put together an example on how you would regulate the dialogue and what would be said and how it would be taken care of, and so that we can look at that and make a better decision. That's my thought.
Perfect. That's exactly what I needed, some directions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have purchase orders. I guess everyone has not had the chance yet because I haven't looked at them yet. I will pass them down. So give me just a minute. So is the crack seal project done for the year, or are we still working on that?
It's probably 85% done. There's a few roads I'd like them to come back and finish up on.
Okay.
So that they didn't yet when they were here, and they will be back. And then we're also looking at, the crack seal one's all done, but the steel coat around the parking lots will have to be done.
Okay. All right, we'll pass this down. Oh, initial. Okay, we'll pass those down, keep those going. If there's any questions, we'll bring them up. Otherwise, we don't need a motion for that anyway, right? As far as I know, okay. All right, city manager report.
I'll be brief on this. As you know, during the city manager report, I like to call out a couple of employees and compliment them. So the first I'd like to do is Danny Manson. He is in our public works department. He has been instrumental in helping us with the nature part, with a lot of our trail system. Poor Kirby Wolfinger over in Public Works, he's had to lose Danny quite a bit recently because he's been helping us so much with these projects. But the guy has been invaluable, and he does it with a grin, and he's out there doing things that a lot of times most of us would feel terrified to do, as he's blazing a trail right next to a cliff. But he's just been an incredible employee, and I just want to give a shout out to Danny. And then one other thing I want to inform council, just keep you up to date in some of the organizational changes we've done in the city. Ryan Claiborne's position has changed a little bit. I want to inform council. He is still the assistant city manager, but we have consolidated public works and water, and all of that is now under Kirby Wolfinger. Ryan is now the assistant city manager over special projects and grants, including our capital projects. And the reason why is he went back, and since we've done the 2 million gallon tank, grants that the city has been awarded is approximately $20 million worth of grants just since then. And that includes a couple that we're still waiting on, a couple minor ones, but it's phenomenal the amount of these grants and other projects that we're bringing in. And we've been doing a lot of this. As you've seen our capital projects that Rhonda just presented, the amount that we spent this year wasn't the full 11 million. And a lot of that wasn't because we couldn't spend the money, it's because we were able to save money by doing things in-house like Danny did, and other ways of accomplishing these great tasks by saving our community money, all while getting new projects such as Teddy's Playground going and some of the other projects we have. So it's been incredible what we have going on. One of the things I love to joke about is the government is wonderful at making plans and putting them on shelves. Well, Roosevelt City is doing a phenomenal job of taking those plans off the shelf and putting them into action. And in the next 6 months to a year, this community is going to see some huge changes. And so Mr. Claiborne's position has changed to be able to help with a lot of that, to oversee some of those projects. In fact, just today, he and I had a conversation about how much time he should be dedicated on pursuing additional grants right now. And it's a really odd conversation when you have to explain to somebody, Ryan, let's focus on spending some of the money before we go get some more grants. We're still looking at the new grants. We're still going to continue to pursue them. We had a lot of this grant money coming in that we need to spend. And we have some incredible projects that are right around the corner. I do want to update council on one last project, the gun range. As you know, last year-ish, past 6 months, we told you the gun range that our grant proposal for the approximately $900,000 was essentially dead. Well, we had someone from the DNR out here Friday. We took a tour of the gun range. It is very much alive. That project we should know in the next couple weeks. I have very high hopes, and I hope it's even beyond that. Things are looking exceptionally well about getting that funding for the gun range. We are top of the list from the DNR. They're hopefully going to make a decision any day now whether we get approved for that, and we can see funding as early as July for an additional $900,000 for Roosevelt City to get that gun range going. So a lot of these projects are coming in at just the right time. Just went down to the nature park today. Moon Lake was down there doing a service project, and they did a ton in a short amount of time. And we look at what's been going on down there and how much little financial investment the city's made, but the time and the resource, the community support has been phenomenal. And it's changing great. So I just want to give a kind of informed council of some of these incredible projects and the things that the staff's been able to do, including them all in there. Every member of the staff has been instrumental, and they've been down at the nature park. They've been helping on different projects outside of their normal department, and it's just been phenomenal to work with everybody there. Are there any questions? I know I just threw a lot at you. Any questions or updates on any of the specific projects?
No, not any at the top of my head. We appreciate that. Sounds like you guys are working really hard, and that's awesome to hear. So Ryan, in just a couple of years or a year since he was moved over to which department? Just I
So now it's just only in administration. So this is just a month or two ago, correct?
Yeah.
That he was removed out of water.
Okay.
And as you know, Ryan is incredible with water. It did not come lightly, because he's been very instrumental in helping us with our water system. But this is the time when we have a lot of things going, and Mr. Wolfinger, we've been able to combine those two departments together.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that'll work out great. I guess the question I really had was, how long did it take us to get that 20 million since Ryan's been where?
Since we had the $2 million grant. I mean, that was, I believe that was almost right before I got here.
Okay, so just in a matter of about 2 years,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a lot of money being brought in in a short amount of time.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, committee reports. Is there any reports?
We've talked enough about Arts, Parks and Rec, but Golf Course Committee, just kind of wanted to give them a shout out. They went out and got a bunch of funds together and painted some of the restrooms up there at the golf course. So it's nice to see the committees getting out there and doing some service work. And appreciate what they did there.
Thank you. That's awesome. Any other comments from committee reports? Okay. I don't have anything either. Items for future discussion.
Sorry, I should have said this before. BP, we are working on that contract for the natural gas. We should have a recommendation for council by next meeting. Just keep it updated.
Okay.
And the good news is less than 550, which is what we were thinking it would be. But at this point, they're quoting about 490.
Cool. Thank you. All right, so I guess we have reason to go into closed session tonight?
Yes, we have 5 items to discussion in closed session.
Okay. So which exception or whatever do we use for that, or how do we make this motion?
Like it's there on your thing, it's kind of across the board.
Okay. Do we have a motion to go into closed session? I guess, is this a roll call vote as well? Yeah, okay. Do we have a?
We go into closed session as per Utah Code 52-4, 5.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Allen and a second by Councilman Cloward. All in favor? Or I guess we're doing a roll call. Dustin?
Aye.
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 All right, we will move into closed session.
We're gonna take a break. For go for this. We can end it.
Jump right in around. No, that's a great mind.
Are we back? Into regular session?
You say so, yes.
Regular session.
We have to do a motion. Yes, we think.
To go back into regular session.
Well, we don't do any motions in closed session, so you can't.
You can, that's the only motion you can make in.
Oh,
regular.
you're right.
Yeah.
I should know
Was the
that.
motion at the first of going in and out of closed session?
No. Okay, well, we had a motion to come out of closed session by Justin, and I seconded it. All in favor? Aye. We're back into open session, sorry. Okay, any other things to address by the council before we adjourn? Adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Yeah, but we have one there.